My name's Lauren. I'm 22. And at my mother's 60th, she called my cousin the daughter, who stayed and fastened my grandmother's diamond on her neck while I poured ice into plastic cups. The club had white tablecloths and a chalkboard sign that said Anchors Away. Karen 60 because Mom loves coastal themes despite living 3 hours from any ocean. There were navy napkins with tiny stitched anchors. A crystal swan candy dish sat in the center, full of butterscotch that tasted like dust. I kept moving plates. Forks. Lemonade, because moving is what you do when you don't know where to put your hands. Harper stood next to my mother. Chin lifted like she already knew. The moment belonged to her. The room went quiet when Mom opened the velvet box. Everyone leaned in. The pendant was a teardrop diamond on white gold. The one my grandmother Evelyn locked away in a jewelry box that squeaked when you turned the key. When I was 14, Grandma clipped it around my neck and said, "When I'm gone, this one is yours. Remember to breathe when you wear it. Diamonds make people stare." I did remember. That memory kept me warm through years of being the responsible one. Because Harper is the one here every day. Mom said, "She deserves it." No one looked at me. It was a clean cut. Quick. Efficient. I set the ice scoop down before my hand shook. "Congratulations." It came out smaller than I wanted. Harper smiled without showing teeth. "You moved away," she said. "We all make choices. I'm a CPA. Numbers calm me. They don't care about tone. For as long as I can remember. I've kept receipts, because evidence is the only thing that makes my family pause. Months earlier, I had organized Mom's bills into a spreadsheet labeled KRN, House, Automatic Transfers Property Tax. Yuan. 166 due quarterly, pharmacy copay averages. $62 divided by month, HOA fee. $145 divided by month. I had a shared emergency account in my name and hers. I funded it. On 3/15 at 1014 a.m. I set the treasurer ACH as autopay confirmation, a 9137Z. In December, I authorized a $2.380 charge to a furnace company because Mom said the heat sounded like a broken tuba. In January, I covered an $842 prescription bill when her card declined. She thanked me once in a 17-second voicemail. "You're my organized girl." I saved it. I told myself it didn't matter if no one else knew. As long as she was okay. At the party, Uncle Peter tapped a fork against his glass. "A toast," he said. "To the real daughter. To the one who stayed." It was a strange sentence because I am, in fact, a daughter. I could feel the words collecting in my throat and going nowhere. Ethan, my husband, touched my wrist under the table. His face asked, "Don't." I nodded because I knew if I stood up, I would knock over the crystal swan. Harper is the golden child. We've called her that for years. Whispered like it's a diagnosis. She has that soft focus charm that makes older relatives say she's sweet while she makes you carry her chair. When she forgot to renew Mom's car registration last spring, Mom said, "The DMV is confusing." When I forgot to bring potato salad once in 2017, I heard about it for a month. Harper gets time. She gets credit. She gets grace. I get tasks. "Come closer," Mom said to Harper. And when the clasp clicked, there was clapping. I should have seen it coming when Mom changed topics every time I mentioned drafting a will. I should have seen it when Harper started posting photos from Mom's house with captions like caregiver life, even though she left by 6 p.m. The most nights, and I had the grocery delivery receipts at 9:03 p.m. I took photos of the chalkboard sign and told the server we were done with the lemonade. Then I went to the bathroom, locked the stall, and counted to 30 with my forehead against cool metal. I wasn't going to cry. Not here. Not in a stall that smelled like lemon cleaner and something underneath it. When I came out, Mom was at the sink. She studied my face in the mirror. "You're not going to make this about you," she said softly. "Don't be so sensitive." "I'm not," I said. "I'm leaving." Her smile was tight. Family helps family. You know how much Harper does for me. I looked at the diamond. Grandma's diamond. It didn't look any smaller on Harper. It just looked farther away from me. I walked back to the table and kissed Ethan on the shoulder. Let's go. He stood immediately. That's the thing about quiet men. They move when it matters. I buckled my seatbelt in the parking lot and stared at the steering wheel long enough for the leather to feel alive. Then I opened my banking app. The emergency account balance blinked at me $3. Do Balingwu. Cherie. I toggled to transfer scheduled pause. I hit pause on the next property tax autopay. I canceled the recurring $475 monthly deposit I'd set to arrive on the 1st. I took my name off the pharmacy auto bill by opening my email and clicking Manage Payment Methods. 2 minutes later, a confirmation email arrived. Primary card removed. Ethan didn't say a word until the third ding. You sure? No. I said. Yes. I exhaled. I can't keep paying to be invisible. At home. I opened the KRN house folder on my laptop and scrolled through months of proof. Screenshot, 2 Helften. 817p. Mom, don't mention the deposit to Harper. She gets jealous. Screenshot 4 gedeeld door 28. 1104a. Harper, can you send me the pharmacy login? I'm at the drive-thru. Screenshot 5 Helften. 722p. Bank text alert cash withdrawal. $300 at Maple Branch. Mom doesn't do cash. She says paper money feels sticky. Harper posted a manicure photo that night with a caption about self-care. I cataloged it all because cataloging kept me from falling apart. For a second, I hovered over delete. I wanted to forget this day existed. But I kept the folder open. Evidence is a seatbelt you hope you never need. 2 days later, at 9:11 a.m., my mother called. I watched the phone ring and thought about today's to-do list. Return library books. Email client about quarterly filings. Buy Ethan more coffee filters because he always forgets until it's Saturday morning and he's holding an empty cone. I answered. Hi. Mom. They just called me from the bank. She said. Breath quick. Voice pitched high, the way it gets when she's hunting for a culprit. They said something about the tax payment failing. Why would it fail? You handle those. She didn't ask. She accused. Did you touch something? I paused the transfers. I said. Calm. Even. The way I talk to clients when a number won't reconcile and everyone is sweating. Silence. Then a small laugh that wasn't laughter at all. Over a necklace, Lauren. It's not about a necklace. You're being dramatic. Harper needs support. You've always been the strong one. It's not strength to pay quietly so you can pretend Harper takes care of you. Her breath crackled through the speaker. You'll fix it, she said. Like she was granting me mercy. You always do. No, I said. Not this time. She hung up without saying goodbye. By lunch. The group chat had bloomed like mold. Aunt Diane, we need to talk. Cousin Mark, this isn't like you. Harper. Privately, I get that you're hurt. But you're hurting Mom more. Be the bigger person. I set the phone face down on my desk. My hands felt hot. I ran them under cold water until they stung. For as long as I can remember. I've wanted my mother to see me. Not the tasks I complete. Me. I thought if I made things easy, love would follow. I told myself it didn't matter who got the credit. It mattered more than I wanted to admit. That evening, Ethan and I ate pasta on the couch because the kitchen felt like a stage. He twirled his fork. What now? I give Mom my accountant's number. I said. If she wants the bills paid, she can pay him to organize them. I'm done volunteering. And the house, he asked gently. He hesitated. I hadn't told him everything. I hadn't told anyone outside the folder and the notary who watched Mom sign 2 summers ago when I bailed her out of a terrible refinance and took a 30% share of the deed to stabilize the mess. I keep boring secrets. They keep me safe. The house, I said, is complicated. He nodded, like he knew there was more. He put his bowl in the sink. Whatever happens, we do it awake. No autopilot. That night, I slept badly. Every time I closed my eyes, the diamond flashed on Harper's throat, like a lighthouse daring me to crash. I woke to 3 voicemails from Mom. The first angry. The second pleading. The third small. I can't find the gas bill login. Harper says you changed it. I didn't. But I understood why she'd say I did. In our family, the story shifts to fit whichever person is holding the microphone. I've never had the microphone. Until now. I made coffee. I reread the ACH confirmation. I stared at the line where my name sat next to hers on the deed copy in my locked drawer. I breathed. Like Grandma told me to when she clipped the diamond on, and I believed her promise. I hit Save As on the folder and renamed it KRN, House, Evidence. Then I opened a new document and typed the date. The party. And one sentence I never expected to write. I am stepping back. What I didn't know then, while the navy napkins were still in the dryer at the club, and Harper was still posting filtered photos of the pendant, is that pausing my payments would expose more than hurt feelings, and that the first account to bounce wouldn't be the one I expected. The first ping wasn't from the county. It was from the gas company Final Notice. Shut-off scheduled 8/10 unless balance $289. 44 paid. I had paused taxes. I hadn't touched utilities. Something else was draining the account. I opened the emergency account ledger. 2 cash withdrawals, the day after the party, $300 at 903 a.m. Maple Branch. $200 at 3:16 p.m. Ridge Branch. Mom doesn't use ATMs. She calls paper money sticky. The balance had slid under the autopay floor. And the gas draft bounced. I called the bank. A woman named Jenna asked me to verify the joint holder. I said my mother's full name. Birth year. Last 4. You're listed. Yenna said. But there was a recent change of address. She read the new one. It was Mom's street. But the apartment number was wrong. Harper's apartment number. Who authorized that, I asked. An in-person request. She said. Signed by your mother. I pictured Mom at a counter she hates. Signing forms she doesn't read. While Harper points where to write. Mayoff clicked. I drove to the branch with a folder of IDs and the brittle politeness I keep for auditors. The lobby smelled like carpet and printer heat. A poster on the wall promised clarity, security, support. I set Mom's durable power of attorney on the desk. The notary stamp sits right over the blue anchor watermark on Mom's stationery. I know it by heart. Jenna took it to the back. Returned with a manager and a stack of forms. There's a newer document on file. He said. Revocation of your power of attorney. What I said. Filed 2 weeks ago. Signed by your mother. Witnessed by Harper Lynn Collins. He said the name like it tasted fine. My head hummed. So I can't access this account. Not without your mother present. He said. We can flag suspicious activity. He lowered his voice. And I can print the last 60 days. The transaction list ran to 2 pages. Gas station. Big box store. Beauty supply. Cash. 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 The dates braided with Harper's caregiver life posts. 7/19 nursed Mom through her dizzy spell. Same day, $180 at Sunset Nails. My stomach flipped. I signed the fraud report and walked out into heat that smelled like hot pennies. My phone buzzed. A new email. Subject notice of revocation. It was from a law office with marbled letterhead stationery attached as a PDF. The first sentence. This letter confirms the revocation of Lauren M. Hale's authority under previously executed healthcare and financial powers. At the bottom, Harper as witness. The date was 3 days before the party. They'd planned the handoff before the toast. For as long as I remember, Mom has rewarded the person standing closest to her. I learned to stand close with money. 2 summers ago, I got a call at 641 a.m. Balloon payment. Mom said. Voice papery. She'd taken a refinance with a teaser rate that jumped. The bank wanted $18. $700 to reset. I transferred the money from my bonus and had a quitclaim drafted for 30% as tenants in common. We signed at her dining table under a ceiling fan that wobbled like it wanted to leave. The notary, Veronica Lopez, watched Mom read each page aloud. This just means Lauren owns a share. Mom said. Like she was teaching it to the air. She placed a pink post-it on the deed that read safe. I scanned everything. File name deed, Trent, Karen Loren, 082 ans. PDF. I took the pink post-it and stuck it in my wallet. I have it still. Edges curled. Adhesive dead. I drove to Mom's after the bank. I needed to see the house. Needed to touch the walls before they belonged to a story I couldn't correct. The porch had a new doormat. Welcome. Y'all. Which no one in our family has ever said. The doorbell camera Harper's purchase blinked a red dot at me. The foyer smelled like lavender spray and old air. Mom was at the kitchen table, sorting envelopes into uneven piles. Her hands trembled. But her eyeliner was perfect. You changed the POA. I said. She looked at her pile. Harper's here every day. I built the auto pays. I said. I saved the house when the loan went bad. You wanted control. She said. Gentle like a slap. I put the gas shutoff notice on the table. The print blurred at the edges, where my thumb had pressed too hard. You're past due because money is leaving in cash. I gave Harper grocery cash. She doesn't like my bank app. She used the emergency account for a nail salon. I said. On the day you said you were sick. Mom brushed the notice aside and corrected a crooked placemat. You always make me feel like I'm failing a test. I swallowed my response because there was no answer she would hear. The refrigerator hummed. A mustard stain shaped like Florida spread across the tablecloth, a relic from a 4th of July party in 2002. We've joked about it for years. Today, it looked like a map of someplace I could not afford to visit. Harper came in from the hallway. Phone in her hand and the diamond catching the kitchen light. Hey there, she said, like the house belonged to her voice. Mom's resting. Let's keep it calm. Okay. You filed to revoke my POA. I said. She shrugged. She asked me to get the papers. She was confused. She wasn't confused when she signed the deed. I said. Harper's eyes flickered. What deed? Nothing you need to worry about. I said. And I hated how it sounded like a bluff, even though it wasn't. She aimed her phone at me for a second. Then lowered it. I'm documenting. She said. In case you, escalate. I almost laughed. You want documentation? Start with ATM withdrawals. She smiled. I have receipts. She said. And I knew she meant social. Not bank. The court of the feed. I noted the angle of her phone. The red doorbell dot. The way Mom's face closed down like a shop at 5. I left before I said something that would make me the villain in a 30-second clip. In the car, my hands shook hard enough that I couldn't uncap my water. I sat there until my breathing matched the turn signal tick. That night, Ethan and I went through the revocation. PDF line by line at the dining table. He has neat handwriting. He started a list. POA revoked, 7/18. Witness Harper. Address change at bank. Cash withdrawals after party. Gas shutoff notice. He wrote next and looked at me. County recorder. I said, if they moved anything else, it'll be there. The recorder's office is beige and buzzing. A clerk named Deshawn typed Mom's name and squinted at the screen. There was a transfer on death designation submitted. He said. Recorded the Monday after that date on your letter. He turned his monitor slightly. I read the line beneficiary Harper Lynn Collins. It didn't wipe my share, couldn't, but it was a move. A plan on paper. Deshawn printed a copy. He slid it under the glass. You can challenge it, he said. But you know that. I do, I said. My voice sounded like someone else's. I walked out with the paper warm from the printer and the sense that my life had turned bureaucratic. Every betrayal had a barcode. Every love had a stamp. On the sidewalk, my phone lit. A group text Aunt Diane posted a photo of Mom and Harper in the yard. Mom wrapped in a blanket, despite June heat. Harper's hand on her shoulder. Caption: when family turns their back. We turned toward each other. The comments were syrup. So proud of you. Harp. Real love. I didn't read the rest. I opened my camera roll and snapped a picture of Deshawn's printout instead. Paper answers paper. When I got home, there was a manila envelope propped against the door. No return address. The flap was sealed with a strip of blue painter's tape, like someone did it in a hurry. I carried it inside, set it on the table, and looked at it for a long time before I slid a butter knife under the fold and pulled. Inside the envelope, 12 printed emails. 2 receipts. A thumb drive with a blue sticker that said front door. And a sticky note in narrow handwriting, check 6/21/1152. The emails were between Harper, Collins, and my sister. Page. Subject lines: POA plan. Necklace moment. Clean narrative. Dates ran back 6 weeks before the party. In one. Page wrote, prime her with the real daughter line. She'll pop. Keep camera ready. Harper replied, if she pops, she's the bad guy. If she stays quiet, we win anyway. My hands went cold. At the bottom of the chain, a forward to Aunt Diane. We're aligned. The timestamps lined up with the days I'd sent Mom's grocery money. The receipts were worse. One from ATM Maple Branch. Archief and Jalil. 1208 p.m. Withdrawal $400. The other from Glint Nail Bar. Archief and Jalil. 137 p.m. 184美元. Woosher. Tip $35. Ling. I looked at my calendar. That was the day Mom called with chest tightness. I'd ordered Instacart and stayed on the phone while she waited for the neighbor to check on her. Harper had posted a boomerang that afternoon, sparkles over pale pink nails. I plugged the drive into my laptop. The file tree was simple: 202406, 21115-206. MP4. I clicked. A wide angle of Mom's porch in flat daylight. Mustard yellow geraniums in a bucket. The door opened. Harper stepped out with Mom's floral wallet tucked under her armpit and a stack of envelopes. She looked back. Said something I couldn't hear. The door closed. 2 minutes later, she came back. Smiled at the camera. Held up cash. Fanned it once. And tucked it into her tote. I rewound. I watched again. I watched a third time. This time, noticing a tiny detail that stung Harper, used her elbow to push the door because her nails were wet. She wasn't even trying to hide it. She thought the camera was hers. I called my attorney. Nora. She's quick, dry, allergic to drama. I described the drive. She didn't make a noise. Just said, chain of custody. It came anonymous. I said, doorbell cam export. Then it's useful for leverage. Not court. She said, we'll need metadata from the device. We'll need to pull the full log. That thing is on Mom's house. I said, then we ask for access. Nora said, and when they refuse, we subpoena. Meanwhile, screenshot everything. Dime stamps. Watermarks. I took screen grabs. I wrote down the times. 1152 entry. 1154 return. I uploaded the file to a secure folder and breathed like I was back in a teenager's bedroom, trying not to slam a door. I thought about who sent the envelope. Rachel. She's the only cousin who texts me on my birthday. I typed, was this you then deleted it? If it wasn't Rachel. Asking made her a target. I made my mistake at 210 p.m. I drove to Mom's to secure the source. I told myself I was protecting evidence. I used my key. I have had that brass key since high school. A copy made at the hardware store with a big red plastic cap, so I wouldn't lose it. The deadbolt turned. The chime dinged low. I stepped inside and went straight to the doorbell base unit on the foyer table. It sat next to the crystal swan candy dish. Little. Butterscotch wrappers stuck to the rim. Lauren, Mom said from the hallway. It's me. I said, holding up my key like a hall pass. I need the camera base. Why? Her voice lifted. Then shaded. Fear. Then rehearsal. Because someone used it to take your money. I said, I have the video. Harper's footsteps came fast. You can't be here. Her phone was already in her hand. Her thumb hovered over record. I'm a co-owner. I said, 30%. Mom's eyes darted between us. Don't turn this into a show, she said softly. You always make a mess. I'm here for the device. I said. Harper dialed. She trespassing, she said into the phone. She's agitated and threatening. Agitated. Threatening. I was holding a base station with a butterfly sticker on it. My heart pounded against my ribs like it wanted to explain itself. 2 patrol cars arrived. The officers stepped into the cool lavender air and looked tired before anyone spoke. The older one, badge Hendricks, asked for IDs. I handed mine over. Harper did too. Mom sat at the table and dabbed the corner of her eye, even though nothing was there. Ma'am, Hendricks said to me. They're saying you don't have permission. I have a recorded ownership stake. I said. I have a key. I came to preserve evidence. I held up the drive and my printout from the recorder. The paper had picked up grease from my fingers. The ink smudged a little where the seal sat. There's a video of Harper taking cash from the emergency account day of life. It's on this system. Hendricks looked at the base. Then at the doorbell. He asked Harper, do you want to show me the footage? Harper's mouth tightened. It overwrites, she said. After a week? It doesn't. I said. It keeps 30 days local. 90 on cloud. Hendricks's partner Chang checked the doorbell unit. It's cloud, she said. You can log in from a phone. Harper opened the app with theatrical reluctance. She scrolled. Then handed it over. Hendricks watched a clip. Glanced at me. Then at Mom. He handed the phone back. This is civil, he said. If you believe money was taken, file a report with the bank and courts. For now, if the resident asks you to leave, he looked at Mom. Mom folded the edge of a placemat over and over. I want peace, she said. Please go. Lauren. Her voice was so small, I almost didn't recognize it. Hendricks nodded at me. Ma'am. I set the base down like it was hot. Fine, I said. But I'm not done. I recorded that, Harper said. And grinned. On my way out. I passed the thermostat. It blinked 79 inches red, and hold. The air felt wrong. Too still. On the console table. The diamond pendant lay on a dish for once. Its chain puddled like a line left mid-sentence. A small, petty part of me wanted to pocket it. Run. Mail it back with a note that said, breathe now. I didn't touch it. In the driveway. My phone rang. The pharmacy. We can't fill Karen Hale's listen operal. The tech said. Card declined. I'll pay, I said. And gave my card. Hold it for pickup. When I hung up, another text pinged. A screenshot. Harper's post-tour story, a still of me in the foyer with the base in my hand. Caption, she came to take Mom's devices. Pray for us. The comments bubbled up like oil. Call the police. Elder abuse, I tasted metal. I emailed Nora everything, the clip. The receipts. The revocation letter. The TOD sheet. The pharmacy issue. The police incident number Hendricks had scrawled on a business card. She replied 6 minutes later, good? Stop going there. We'll file an emergency motion to preserve digital evidence. Also, Do not pay vendors directly, they will call that control. I already paid for meds. I wrote back. She called immediately. Don't do that again. She said. They'll twist it. We'll set up a third-party payer or the court will. You are building a timeline. Not saving a day. I stared at the Florida-shaped mustard stain on the copied tablecloth photo I'd taken Thursday. Once a joke? Now a map again. I'd stepped into the wrong state. At 5:12 p.m. Bank fraud emailed investigating ATM withdrawals on 6/21. Provisional credit, $200 issued pending review. A small, sharp victory that felt like a bandage on a deep cut. I texted Ethan tiny win. He replied with a green check emoji and proud of you for not burning it down. 3 days later, we were in court for the motion to preserve. Harper arrived in a white dress with sleeves and a sweater draped over her shoulders like pennants. Mom wore sunglasses in a fluorescent courtroom. A man beside them introduced himself as Harper's attorney. He smiled at me like we were at a networking breakfast. The judge read quickly. Motion to preserve cloud footage granted. She said. Doorbell vendor to produce 30 days of logs to both parties within 10 days. Harper's attorney popped up. And? Your Honor, we'd like to request a temporary protective order. Ms. Hale entered the property, uninvited, and attempted to remove devices. We have video. I felt Ethan's knee tap mine under the table. Stay seated. The judge looked at Hendrix's incident report. She exhaled. This is a property dispute tangled with family nonsense. She said. No protective order. But Ms. Hale, she looked at me, do not go to the residence again, unless accompanied by law enforcement or for scheduled visits. I nodded. A tiny punchline, I'd get the footage. But I had to act like a stranger to a house with my name on it. Outside. Aunt Diane stepped into my path. Her perfume was too sweet. Was this your plan? To humiliate your mother? My plan, I said, is to stop pretending. Harper's a good girl, she said. She has a good camera, I said, and she knows where to point it. On the drive home, a thought clicked into place. The envelope, the note, the blue sticker, the way the footage had been exported exactly clipped. Watermarked. Metadata intact. Not Rachel. Not Mark. Someone who knew how to pull logs without alerting Harper's app. When I reached my street, I parked and didn't get out. If I was right, the person who sent the drive didn't do it for me. They did it to keep their own name off a report. Which meant the doorbell wasn't the only device watching that house. And the next move wouldn't be at a kitchen table. It would be in a server room where no one's perfume could cover the truth. I was right. The envelope wasn't kindness, it was a breadcrumb. I started with money. Anonymous is romantic. In court, it's useless. I opened Mom's bank statements again and searched the merchant list. There it was. Shoreview Smart Home, $219. 00, monthly. A service fee I'd never noticed because autopay hides sins. I Googled. Found a number. And called. The receptionist sounded 19. Shoreview. This is Kay. My mother's cameras. I said. I'm a joint owner on her account. I need the audit log. Let me pull up the profile. She said. Keys clacking. Account email. I gave Mom's. A pause. Okay. I see a base station, front door camera, living room camera, smart lock. Last user login was Harper Collins. Another pause. We can't give you content without a request from the account holder or a subpoena. I have a court order to preserve, I said, and a motion pending for production. She put me on hold. Tinny music filled my ear. Ethan slid a glass of water across the table and mouthed. Breathe. Kay came back. Our legal team will respond to counsel. Off the record. I'm seeing a lot of shared clip events. That's unusual. Shared with who? Can't say without counsel. She said. Softer. But the label on the thumb drive you got, we only use blue stickers with room names when a tech exports clips from the base. Someone in the field touched your system. After we hung up, I checked Mom's mail pile photos on my phone. I zoomed in on a crumpled invoice from last month. Shoreview work order, numeral 4893. Technician era. Patel. The bottom had a Sharpie note, added guest user. I sent Nora the merchant info. The work order number. Kay's first name. The blue sticker detail. Nora filed 2 subpoenas, one to Sureview for audit logs, and shared recipients. One to the bank for ATM camera footage on 6/21 at Maple and Ridge branches. She added a motion to invalidate the transfer on death designation due to undue influence, and requested a neutral fiduciary to manage Mom's bills pending the dispute. Her email subject line was all caps, "Lis Pendens recorded." She'd clouded the title. No one could move the house without a fight. The next morning, I went to the HOA office. Beige carpet. A ficus wearing dust. A sign taped crookedly, "Gate codes are for residents only." The manager, Tom, wore a polo with the subdivision's lighthouse logo. "I need gate logs from 6/21. I said, "Entry and exit." He looked at the badge Nora had told me to print. His eyes softened a fraction. "We don't give them to family," he said. "We give them to law enforcement." I slid Hendrix's card across the counter. Case number at the top. Tom exhaled. "Give me an hour." I sat in my car with the AC on full and watched a dragonfly bounce off the windshield, like it kept forgetting the glass was there. An hour later, Tom handed me a printout. Timestamps. License plates. Guest code entries. 1149A. M. Guest code 0742, Harper. 1231P. M. Exit plate HPN 3, 127. I matched the times to the ATM receipt in the envelope. 1208P. M. Maple Branch withdrawal. She had 39 minutes to take Mom's wallet, hit the ATM, and get a manicure. She didn't even need all of it. Shoreview responded first. A legal assistant named Monique delivered a download link with a polite cover letter and a spreadsheet user logins. Device names. Shares. The living room camera had carried a blue sticker too, Living Room. My throat went dry. Audit highlights. 6/14, 1819. Clip created toast, practice. MP4. Shared with Diane at 6/16, 0902, new user added Harper. Collins at 6/21, 1153. Clip created FD, cache 1. MP4. Not shared. 7/18, 1422, new user added page. Haylet. 8/11010. Clip deleted FD, cache 1. MP4. But deletion on the app didn't kill the base export. Someone had pulled the file before they tried to scrub it. Someone who knew how. I pressed play on toast, practice. MP4. The living room. Afternoon light cutting the couch. Mom at the table in her gray cardigan. Hands folded. Face hopeful. Harper across from her. Phone propped against a salt shaker. Framing them both. Paige's voice off camera say the line again. Aunt Karen. Mom tried. To my daughter, she faltered. Glanced at Harper. To the daughter who stayed. That's good. Paige said. Again. With the necklace. Harper took the velvet box from the sideboard and opened it. She lifted the diamond. Let it swing. Remember to clip it on me slow, she said. Voice honey sweet. Let it catch the light. I paused. The room felt like it tilted. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. They rehearsed my humiliation like a skit. I watched to the end. Mom smiled, the smile she wears when she's trying to be told how to be loved. Harper leaned into the camera and whispered. She'll either cry or leave. Either way, we win. I sent the file to Nora with one line. We're not speculating anymore. Nora called within 5 minutes. We add this to the motion. she said. We ask for a temporary restraining order, restricting Harper from accessing accounts and devices. We request appointment of a guardian ad litem to evaluate your mother's decision-making. And we file an Adult Protective Services report, with the clip attached. It moved fast after that because evidence has weight. APS called the next day. The investigator, Ms. Velez, met me at a coffee shop that smells like burnt almonds and printer toner. She used a purple gel pen that squeaked on the form as she wrote, "We don't decide property," she said. "But we do decide safety. We'll do a home visit. Be ready for cameras," I said. "They'll curate what you see." She smiled without humor. "I know how curation works." The bank produced Maple Branch's camera angle clean. Overhead. 20 frames per second. A woman in a white sundress approached the ATM with a floral wallet. She shielded the screen with her palm, then turned just enough that the camera caught the side of her face. The diamond flashed. The timestamp read 120819. Hendricks picked up the footage and logged it into evidence. He didn't say he was sorry. He didn't have to. Nora's list on our dining table grew neat boxes. Motion to invalidate TOD filed. Motion for TRO filed. APS report submitted. Case number 2, 40813VZ. Forensic accountant retained S. Han. Scope last 18 months. All accounts. Compare vendor charges. ATM withdrawals. Gate logs. Living room clip, authenticated via SureView custodian of records. Bank footage collected. She added a final box and wrote it in darker ink. Set the meeting. What meeting? I asked. The bank wants everyone present to fix the bouncing accounts, she said. We'll let Harper think that's the goal. We invite your mother. Harper. Aunt Diane, if she insists. The bank's fraud officer will attend. APS will observe. We'll have an independent notary. No surprises. Only paper. And the plan? Ethan asked, leaning in. Simple, Nora said. We put all the timestamps in one room and ask one question: who was at the ATM? I looked down at my hands. They were steady. For months, I'd been running around fires with a coffee cup. Now I had a hose. The night before the meeting. Ms. Ville texted home visit today. Harper refused entry. Your mother came outside. Said she was too tired. I noted refusal. 10 minutes later, Tom from the HOA sent a photo 2 garbage bags on Mom's porch. Inside, I could see pill bottles. The date stickers glowed orange like hazard signs. He wrote, "Found these by the recycling. Thought you'd want to know." I zoomed in. The labels were 3 months old. Full. I forwarded the photo to Nora and Ms. Velez. APS replied, documenting. Concerning for neglect. At 10 p.m. An email from SureView Legal landed with a second batch of logs. Among the dry lines. 1 Stung 8, Drittel 2, 01, 4 Clip, created living audio, 803. M port I. No video. Just sound. I clicked. Muffled. Then clearer. Like someone put a phone down on the table by accident. Paige, she'll back down if you cry. Harper, if she brings up that deed thing. Say you don't remember. Say Lauren made you sign when you were dizzy. Mom. Very quiet. She helped me. I want peace. Harper peace is her leaving it alone. Silence. Then the scraping of a chair. A small metallic clink. The necklace against porcelain. Maybe. Or a spoon. I sat there with headphones on, listening to the small sounds of my family practicing a war they thought would end with me tired on my couch. Ethan touched my shoulder. You okay? I am, I said. It surprised me to mean it. I printed everything. I tabbed it with color-coded flags. Yellow for money. Blue for devices. Red for law. I put the Florida-shaped mustard stain photo at the very front. Not for the court. For me, a reminder that maps can be jokes and warnings both. At 8:45 the next morning, we walked into a glass-walled conference room at Maple Branch. The fraud officer, a woman with a square watch and a voice that didn't waste time, arranged the files. Ms. Velez sat with a notebook. Hendricks leaned against a back wall. He had a coffee and eyes that said he'd seen versions of this before. A notary tested her stamp on scrap paper. The bank's coffee tasted like burnt almonds again. Harper arrived in a navy blouse. Aunt Diane floated beside her in a scent like violets. Mom followed last in a sweater despite the heat. She kept smoothing the sleeve, like the knit could erase wrinkles in the air. "Thank you for coming," the fraud officer said. "We're here to resolve the account irregularities and discuss next steps." She pushed a remote. The monitor on the wall lit up. A split screen. Left the doorbell clip. Timestamp elet, 52. Right, the ATM overhead. Timestamp, 12:00. Between them, the HOA gate log entry at 1149 and exit at 1231. Beneath. In the living room toast practice clip waited on pause like a throat clearing. The fraud officer looked at Harper. "Ms. Collins, can you identify the person in the ATM footage?" Harper's mouth opened, then shut. Her hand went to the diamond at her throat, the way it had at the party. The room was quiet enough to hear the notary shift a pen. Mom whispered, "Harper," for a heartbeat. I thought she might tell the truth. Then Harper turned her head and looked straight at me. "Lauren," she said, "how far are you going to take this?" "To the end," I said. "To the truth." The fraud officer clicked the remote. The living room clip filled the screen. Paige's voice. "Say the line again." "Aunt Karen." Harper lifting the velvet box. My mother practicing a toast like it was algebra. No one breathed. The fraud officer didn't narrate. She didn't need to. She let it run to the whisper at the end, "Harper. Either way, we win." Aunt Diane made a sound like air leaving a tire. "Context," she said. "Thin. You don't know context." "We have timestamps," Nora said. "We have money. We have access logs. That's context." Hendricks pushed off the wall. "Ms. Collins," he said to Harper, eyes on his notebook. "Did you use Karen Hale's account card at the Maple Branch ATM on 6/21 at 1208 p.m.?" Harper's tongue touched her molar, like she thought there might be a sentence there. "Mom gave me cash," she said. "She asked me to grab groceries and..." He lifted a hand. "Yes or no?" She stared at the carpet. "Yes," she whispered. "But..." "Thank you," he said. He didn't write the but. "Ms. Velez folded her purple ink pages. "Karen, I'm concerned," she said. "I'm seeing patterns that meet our threshold for financial exploitation. I need to develop a safety plan with you." Mom kept rubbing her sleeve, fingers worrying a single pill of yarn like she could erase it. "I'm tired," she said. "I don't want police in my life. We don't choose investigation by liking it," Ms. Velez said. "Gentle. We choose it by what happened." The fraud officer slid a paper across the table. "We're restricting access on all joint accounts," she said. "Only transactions approved by a third-party payer will clear. We recommend appointing a neutral fiduciary." She looked at Mom. "Mrs. Hale, you can authorize that today." Nora put a short, clean form in front of Mom. "This name's a neutral," she said. "Temporary. Not Lauren. Not Harper." Mom looked at me like the room was full of strangers, and I was the worst one. "You're enjoying this," she said softly. I swallowed. "No. I'm saving us from the next emergency." Harper reached for Mom's hand. The diamond flashed. "You don't have to sign anything," she said. "You can take time." "We've had time," Nora said. "We have groceries in trash bags." Aunt Diane squared her shoulders. "You've always wanted control. She told me. You moved away and came back with spreadsheets. I came back with heat in January. I said. Armayun. 380, on 12/19. Confirmation 5, A, 2, L, 9. I can recite the numbers because I paid them. Hendricks checked his watch. Then the room. Ms. Collins, he said. And his voice had changed. I'm going to ask you to step with me to the lobby. Harper's chin lifted. Why defiance? The kind people use when they think cameras are pointed the other way. Because I believe there's probable cause to detain you on suspicion of theft and financial abuse of an elder, he said. He nodded at the screen. We'll take your statement downtown. The room tilted. Not because I wanted cuffs. Because Mom was about to watch a story break in front of her that she had practiced to keep whole. No, Mom said. Sudden and sharp. No one is taking Harper. She stood too fast. The sweater sleeve snagged on the chair arm. The chain on the diamond caught, snapped with a sound like a small twig, and the pendant skittered across the glossy table and dropped. A bright bead. Onto the carpet. It rolled under the conference table and stopped against the base of a chair, where no one's hand could reach without kneeling. We all looked at it. The silence was so loud, I heard the bank's printer wake up in the next room. Harper's face cracked. Then set. This is a family matter, she said. Voice low. You can't arrest me for helping. Hendricks didn't touch her. He had learned how to move around people without making them feel smaller. Let's go talk, he said. She glanced at me. Something in it asked if I would stop this. Another asked if I could be blamed for starting it. Then she walked out with Hendricks and Chang. Chin up. Wrists free. But every step loud. The fraud officer tapped the form again. Mrs. Hale, she said. Soft. If you don't authorize a no trial today, the bank will maintain the freeze. That means no prescriptions, no utility payments. Nothing clears. Ms. Velez looked at Mom. I can petition for an emergency conservator, she said. It's faster if you choose. Mom sought. The sweater sleeve caught again. And this time she noticed. Tried to smooth it. Failed. She picked up the pen. Her hand hovered over the signature line. She looked at me. And in that second, we were back in Grandma's kitchen with tomato vines outside the window and a radio playing softly and her saying, Sign here. Honey. And Mom signing anything to make a problem vanish. I don't forgive you. Mom said to me, You made this ugly. I nodded once. Ugly was already in the room. I said, I just turned on a brighter light. She signed. The notary stamped with a thunk. The seal left a raised circle that felt like a bruise under my finger when I collected a copy. Nora exhaled through her nose. A quiet release. The fraud officer stood. Thank you, she said. We'll route all bills to the fiduciary by day's end. Aunt Diane pressed a tissue to her eye and missed. You'll be sorry, she whispered as we filed out. Blood remembers. Paper does. Too, I said. Too tired to make it softer. In the lobby, Chang was at the glass doors on her radio. Hendricks appeared a minute later alone. No cuffs. She's agreed to come in for a recorded interview, he said. Charges go to the DA. Don't poke the hive. I nodded. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like a building whose fire alarm had finally found volume. Outside. The sun was bright in that hard way that makes edges too clean. Ethan put the car between us and the bank like a shield. Mom and Aunt Diane waited by the curb for a rideshare. The sweater looked too warm. The diamond lay somewhere under a chair. Cool and irrelevant. Mom didn't speak to me. She got into the car and closed the door like punctuation. On the ride home, my phone lit up with notifications. Harper had posted a black square with the caption, Pray for my family. Comments multiplied. People love a shapeless crisis. I put the phone on Do Not Disturb and watched our neighborhood slide by lawns cut clean. Recycling bins, lined like little blue soldiers. Somewhere, a sprinkler clicked like a metronome trying to keep the day on beat. At home, Nora spread our copies on the dining table form. Audit logs. Subpoena return. She wrote 2 new boxes. Emergency conservator hearing Friday, 9:00 a.m. Temporary no-contact motion file tonight. What's the price, I asked. Not rhetorically. Not as immoral. As math. Nora capped her pen. You'll lose people, she said. You'll spend money you didn't plan to spend. Your mother may not forgive you. She may tell a story where you are the villain. And you will never again be the daughter who saves a day quietly. She's not sentimental. That helped. At 9:47 p.m. Ms. Veles texted mom home. Harper not there. Note on door says she's taking space. Your mother has food delivered by the fiduciary tomorrow. Safety check scheduled. 10 minutes later. Hendricks emailed a form letter. Statement completed. Video logged. Will update when the DA reviews. I stood at the kitchen sink and let the water run over my wrists until my skin cooled. Ethan dried a pan like we were trying to prove regular life still existed. I didn't want cuffs, I said. I wanted the truth on paper. You got paper, he said. Now we see what the truth costs. I walked to my desk and took out the pink post-it. Grandma had stuck on the deed 2 summers ago. Safe. The adhesive was dead. It didn't stick to anything. I laid it flat on the desk and pressed it with my palm anyway. Like pressure could make old promises hold. In the morning, I'd stand in another beige room and argue for a stranger to manage my mother's life. Tonight I stared at the small square of pink and wondered when protection started to feel so much like breaking something you can't put back. Friday, 9:00 a.m. The probate courtroom felt like a library where no one trusts books. Fluorescent lights. A clock that clicked loud. I sat next to Nora. Ethan squeezed my knee once and let go. Judge Moreno took the bench and read from the stack like it was weather. Petition for temporary conservatorship. Motion to invalidate transfer on death designation. Request for protective order. Her voice made each item ordinary. Nora stood. We submit exhibits A through N, she said. Doorbell logs. Bank footage. HOA entries. Pharmacy denials. The living room rehearsal clip, authenticated by Shoreview's custodian, and the provisional credit memo from Maple Branch. She set the binder down. The tabs made a neat rainbow. Evidence doesn't try to be pretty. It still is when it's organized. Harper's attorney pushed his chair back. He wore a blue tie with small anchors. The kind people wear when they want to look steady. He said words like misunderstanding and family context and temporary cash handling. He almost reached for the word jealousy. Then thought better. Ms. Veles testified. Door was closed at home visit, she said. Steady. Pill bottles found discarded. Medication adherence unclear. Financial exploitation likely. Safety plan recommended. She didn't look at anyone when she said it. She looked at the judge like the point was not to hurt or spare, just to say what happened. Judge Moreno asked my mother 2 questions. Mrs. Hale. Do you feel pressured by either daughter? Mom looked down. I feel tired, she said. I want peace. Do you understand these papers? The judge asked. Tapping the form Nora had drafted. Mom nodded. Fast. The way you nod at a bus driver, pulling away. The order came clean. Temporary conservatorship granted. Judge Moreno said. Neutral fiduciary appointed Marisol Beck. CPA. Of Beacon Fiduciary. She looked at Harper. Ms. Collins. You are enjoined from accessing Karen Hale's accounts and devices pending further order. She signed an order invalidating the TOD designation for good cause undue influence, shown prima facie. The protective order included a line that made my throat ache. No contact for the purpose of requesting money. The clerk stamped each page. Thunk. 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 Every sound was a hinge closing. Outside in the parking lot, the heat rose off the asphalt in wavy lines. I popped my trunk. 2 banker's boxes sat inside, labeled in block letters. Box 1 bills to Beacon. Auto pay lists. Account numbers. The spreadsheet with the small notes, only I would recognize. Like gas company insists on paper checks. ACH flaky. Box 2 context. Photos. Pharmacy hold notices. The copy of the HOA log. The print of the doorbell audit with the word toast, practice circled in pink highlighter, because I'm done pretending everything is neutral ink. Marisol Beck walked up with a clipboard. Hair pulled back in a no-nonsense knot. She carried a roll of blue painter's tape like a talisman. "I'll take these," she said. Her voice was practical. "We'll set up a new P.O. box. We'll change logins. Your mother gets a debit card with a daily max. Groceries will be delivered on a set schedule. You will not be the payer. You will be the daughter." "I can do daughter," I said. It surprised me that I meant it. Mom stood a few feet away, holding her purse with 2 hands like it might run. Harper wasn't there. Hendricks had taken her statement and told her not to contact my mother. Aunt Diane hovered like a shadow that smelled like violets and accusation. I lifted a smaller envelope from the trunk. Inside was our spare house key on its red plastic cap. And the curling pink post-it from 2 summers ago. Safe. I looked at it. Then at Mom. "This goes to Marisol," I said. "Not to me. Not to Harper." Mom's mouth trembled. "Do you hate me?" she asked. Quiet. Like she was afraid any louder would make the word true. "No," I said. "But I'm done paying for permission to care." She looked at the asphalt. "What about the hydrangeas?" she asked finally. The question was so ordinary it hurt. "They scorch in August." "Marisol will set up a gardener," I said. "Or I'll come water when someone else is there. Boundaries aren't poetry. They're scheduling." Marisol took the boxes. "Ms. Velez noted the chain of custody like it was sacred text. Hendricks passed by. Nodded once. "DA is reviewing," he said. "Likely misdemeanor charges. Restitution recommended." He didn't say the word jail. Justice has more shapes than handcuffs. A week later, it moved the way summer thunderstorms move slow. Then all at once, the DA filed 1 count of unlawful use of an access device and 1 of misdemeanor theft. Harper pled out. Restitution, $17. Sambe. Community service, 120 hours. Financial counseling mandated. A year of unsupervised probation if she kept her hands off other people's money. Paige got quiet online and sent me 1 text I was wrong. I stared at the screen until the letters went fuzzy. Then put the phone face down. Some acknowledgements are receipts, not repairs. Beacon took over everything. Prescriptions refilled. Utilities paid. A locksmith rekeyed the deadbolts. Shoreview wiped the cameras and added their own with audit alerts that pinged to Beacon. Not to Harper. The diamond pendant appeared in a small, padded bag the bank mailed to the fiduciary with unclaimed personal items. Marisol asked what I wanted to do with it. "Return it to my mother," I said. "Document that it's hers. Put it in a safe deposit box. List it on the inventory. No one wears it." The house itself, the part that could kill us slowly, needed a decision. List pendants clouded the title. Beacon ran the numbers. Paint was peeling. Roof tired. Taxes coming. Marisol sat with me and Mom at the dining table, one last time. "We can sell with court approval," she said. "Split proceeds per recorded ownership. Use your mother's share to fund her care." Simple on paper. Hard in a human mouth. Mom stared at the Florida-shaped mustard stain on the tablecloth. She traced the panhandle with her finger. "I don't want to die in this house," she said suddenly. It was the most honest sentence she'd given me in months. We sold. A modest cash offer. Above asking by a little because the market was kind that week. Beacon handled every signature. Every wire. The court approved disbursement 30% to me. 70% to Beacon's trust for Mom. I took my share and did something boring and good. I paid off our car. I topped off the kids' 529 seconds. I wrote a check to a legal clinic, that staffs APS cases with actual attorneys. Not just pamphlets. I left the memo line blank because no sentence could hold the reason. Moving day was practical. A truck. Men with dollies. Marisol with a clipboard. I came at the end with plastic bins and labels because I am still me. I found the tablecloth in a drawer. The mustard stain had faded at the edges, but the shape stayed Florida. Defiant. I cut the square out with kitchen scissors and slid it into a frame. Ethan hung it by my desk that night. A map of what we ignore until it isn't ignorable. Mom's new place is a one-bedroom with morning light, and the kind of carpet you can't stain no matter how hard you try. Beacon pays the rent. A home health aide named Ruth comes Tuesdays and Thursdays. Ruth sends me texts like, "Kathy enjoyed a walk." Because she misheard my mom's name on day one, and Mom didn't correct her. I brought groceries the first week and put them away under Ruth's clear gaze. I didn't open drawers. I don't ohm. I hugged my mother and left when the timer I set on my phone went off. Boundaries can be trained like breath. Harper moved out of town. She works at a salon off the highway near the outlet mall. I know because Aunt Diane told Rachel. And Rachel told me in a message that used too many exclamation points. Trying to soften something sharp. Sometimes Harper posts quotes about growth. Sometimes she posts her lunch. The comments are quieter now. I don't check often. Paige asked if we could meet. We did. At a diner where nobody knows anyone. She apologized without angles. I listened. I didn't quip. We split the check to avoid symbolism. On the way out, she said, "I wish Mom had been softer." I said, "Me too." Sometimes adult truce is just two people choosing not to repoint old knives. The house closed on a Thursday. I picked up the envelope with the final papers and the tiny key to the lockbox where the diamond sits. I drove to the empty lot one last time. The porch looked smaller without furniture. The air didn't smell like lavender spray. It smelled like dust and wood and an afternoon that had finally run out. I stood in the living room where we practiced toasts about love and stared at the patch of lighter paint where Grandma's clock used to hang. I thought of her hands clipping the diamond around my neck when I was 14. "Remember to breathe when you wear it," she said. I don't wear it. I breathe anyway. On my kitchen wall now. The Florida-shaped stain looks like a state I got out of, and a warning I carry. I touch the glass when I sit down to do bills and tell myself a different instruction than the one I grew up with. Evidence first. Kindness with receipts. Love without invoices. And when I think of the party, I remember the sound the chain made on the bank's carpet when it snapped. A bright little note that meant the story I'd been told didn't own me anymore. Some nights I want to call my mother and say, Look at the hydrangeas. They're blooming. I don't. I send Ruth a text and a photo. And Ruth replies with a thumbs up and a picture of my mother's hands holding a mug. Her nails are bare. The mug says Anchors Awe. Chipped on the rim. Paper remembers. Blood does too. The trick is choosing which one you let steer. In story, too, I stood at the stove. Stirred the soup, and thought about how my husband would finally have dinner at home that evening. We hadn't spent time together for a long time. Work. Worries. Fatigue. Everything was moving us apart. I put the plates on the table. Cut the bread and turned around with hope when I heard him enter the kitchen. But instead of a smile and a greeting, I saw a gloomy face and a hard look. His mother followed him in. Majestic, as always in her dressing gown, and with the air of a hostess. She immediately sat down in my chair without even asking permission. My husband sat down opposite, and suddenly barked so loudly that my hands began to shake. Shut up and don't show off. Mom will live with us for at least 10 years if she wants. I froze with the ladle in my hands. As if I had been doused with ice water. The words hit me right in the heart. I thought I had misheard. But no. He repeated it more calmly. But still harshly. Looking straight into his eyes. As if he was putting an end to an argument that had not even happened. His mother grinned. As if this was her long-awaited victory. And lowered her eyes. Trying to hold back her tears. Everything I had done for our family. All the efforts. The care of a sleepless night. Was devalued in 1 second. I was no longer a partner wife. I had become a stranger in my own home. I sat on the edge of the chair. Although my legs were buckling, thoughts thundered in my head. How could he? Is my life really going to depend on my mother-in-law's whim and me? And our future? I tried to pull myself together, to find the words. But my lips seemed stuck. My husband, with an unperturbed look, poured himself some soup and began to eat. As if nothing had happened, the mother-in-law snorted, scattering remarks. You see, son, you are doing the right thing. She is young. She has not yet learned her senses. She will know her place. With each of her phrases, I went deeper and deeper inside myself. I was torn between despair and anger. I wanted to scream, break a plate, run out of the house. But I sat and listened to them discussing plans. We'll rearrange the furniture here. Do some repairs there. I'll be living here for a long time. These words grated on my ears. A long time to live. So she's already decided for me. And it turns out I'm a nobody. I looked at my husband. He used to be different. The guy I fell in love with protected me, supported me. We dreamed of building a house together, where it would be warm and cozy. And now he sat opposite me, like a stranger, and didn't even notice how he was breaking me. In his eyes, I saw coldness, indifference, and next to him a smug mother, pleased with her power. When dinner was over, I was clearing the table. My hands were shaking, but I didn't say a word. Words seemed meaningless, because he had already chosen a side. The mother-in-law went into the bedroom, leaving behind a sense of someone else's smell, someone else's presence. My husband turned on the TV and, without looking at me, said, "Get used to it. It will be better for everyone." I couldn't stand it and went into another room, slamming the door behind me. I leaned my back against it and slowly slid down. Tears flowed of their own accord. Hot. Scorching. I didn't know what would happen next. Only one thing was clear. The old life was gone. That night I couldn't sleep for a long time. I looked at the ceiling and tried to find an answer to what to do. Accept it, endure it, while they both decide for me. Or fight. Risking losing everything. It seemed to me that I was trapped. In my own home, I felt like a guest who was allowed to stay for a while. And my husband, the very man I trusted most, became a stranger. And it was then, in the silence of the night, that I first thought that maybe my life should not depend on his cries and her whims. That I was not a servant or a silent shadow. I was a woman who had the right to happiness. This thought quietly settled inside, like a small spark. I didn't know what would happen next. But deep down, I knew it couldn't go on like this. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of pots banging and the smell of overcooked onions. At first, I didn't understand where I was. And only then I remembered. Yesterday, my husband had announced that his mother would live with us as long as she wanted. I carefully got up from the bed, feeling the weight of a sleepless night, and went to the kitchen. It was as if my mother-in-law was in charge of her apartment. She got up while it was still dark, rummaged through all the cupboards, rearranged the jars and pots, and was now cooking something for the whole family, without even asking my opinion. "So, are you awake?" she greeted me in a caustic tone, without turning around. So she decided to cook a normal breakfast. Otherwise, everything is wrong here. There is no order. I silently sat on the edge of the chair, trying to figure out how to react. Each of her phrases sounded like a jab. She opened my cupboards, commented that there were too few spices, or that there were not enough decent dishes. And all this with such an air as if she was the hostess, and I had accidentally dropped in to stay. A few minutes later, the husband came into the kitchen, sleepy but happy. He put his arm around his mother's shoulders and said, "You're a good girl, Mom. You always get things done around the house. And she only runs around doing her own things." These words hit hard. She, that is, me, the wife who tried day and night for the family. I wanted to scream, but I held back. The husband sat down at the table, and the two of them began to discuss how best to rearrange the furniture in the living room so that it would be more comfortable for the mother-in-law. "But this cabinet should be removed," said my mother-in-law, nodding at my bookcase. "It's redundant here. I'll put my things there." "Of course. We'll remove it." My husband calmly agreed. I couldn't resist, and quietly objected. "But it's my cabinet. My books are there." "Who needs these books?" My mother-in-law waved her hand. "They're just collecting dust. Throw them out. That's all." My husband didn't even look at me, continuing to eat. I felt my heart squeeze with resentment. Yesterday's pain came back with renewed vigor. After breakfast, my mother-in-law commanded, "Today, we'll go get some curtains. I'll pick out some normal ones. Otherwise, these ones of yours are gloom." I nodded mechanically, although everything inside me protested. My husband, as if not noticing my condition, just smiled. "Great idea, Mom." The day passed in endless instructions. She decided which towels were right, which plates were good for guests, and which were embarrassing to hold. I felt like a schoolgirl who was scolded for every little thing. When I tried to suggest something, my mother-in-law interrupted and declared that I did not understand anything about housekeeping. In the evening, when her husband returned from work, she enthusiastically reported that she had done everything as it should be. He praised her without even asking my opinion. I sat silently, my eyes downcast, as if I did not exist in this room. But inside, there was a growing feeling that I was being pushed out of my own home. Every step she took was aimed at showing, "I am superfluous here." Instead of supporting me, my husband became more and more distant. His smiles were only for my mother, but for me there was coldness and indifference. Late in the evening, clearing the table, I caught myself thinking, if this continues, I will simply cease to be myself. I will be a shadow, without a voice, without the right to live. And then that little spark that had appeared yesterday flared up inside me again. A spark of resistance. I didn't know how exactly, but I decided I won't allow myself to be turned into a servant in my own home. My life shouldn't belong to the whims of my mother-in-law and the blind obedience of my husband. I didn't have an answer yet, but I knew for sure I can't remain silent any longer. The next day I woke up with a heaviness in my soul. The night was restless. My mother-in-law was rattling dishes, moving chairs, and muttering something under her breath until late in the evening. And I lay awake, listening to her every step. My husband slept peacefully next to me, as if everything was perfect in his soul. I looked at his face and understood that he didn't even know what I was feeling. For him, my mother's arrival was a joy. For me, a real test. When I went out to the kitchen, my mother-in-law was already sitting at the table in a dressing gown, like the mistress of the house, drinking tea. She looked at me appraisingly, as if checking whether I was worthy of being in this apartment at all. "Well, are you finally up?" she said with a slight grin. I was thinking, my son and I have long wanted to hang new shelves. Your old ones are crooked, barely holding up. Today we will do it. I silently poured myself a cup of tea, but inside, everything was boiling. My father had put these shelves up. I had carefully preserved their memories, and now a strange woman was going to destroy the last thread, connecting me with the past. My husband, as always, returned from work for lunch, smiled from the doorway, hugged my mother, and listened to her report on how the house had been redone again. "Well done, Mom," he said proudly. "You can immediately feel that order has appeared." "Of course," nodded the mother-in-law. "Otherwise, your wife makes up everything in her own way. Only it's more inconvenience." I felt the blood rush to my face. I wanted to be indignant, to scream. But my husband gave me a stern look, as if I were a child who was better off keeping quiet. After dinner, the two of them started taking down my old shelves. I stood to the side, clutching a book I'd pulled out at the last minute, and felt like they weren't stealing my furniture, but a piece of my soul. At some point, I finally made up my mind. Maybe I shouldn't. These shelves are important to me. Dad made them. My mother-in-law just snorted. Oh, come on. What difference does it make who made them? They're all old stuff anyway. My husband, without even looking at me, continued to screw in the screws, as if I and my voice did not exist in the room. In the evening, when the new shelves were already hanging, and the jars of spices were neatly arranged on them, my mother-in-law proudly sprawled in her chair and said, "Now this is human. Otherwise, you don't have an apartment here." But God knows what. I was clearing the table and trying not to burst into tears, but the tears were rolling down my cheeks. My husband noticed this and frowned. "But what's wrong again?" Mom tried. "She did everything for us. You're always unhappy with everything." "I'm unhappy," I whispered, barely holding my voice. "This is my home, and I'm being pushed out of it. Can't you see? Enough?" "Hysterics," he snapped. "Mom will live here as long as she wants. Accept it." These words pierced my heart like a knife. I realized that I had no allies left. My husband had finally sided with my mother. I lay awake at night, listening to them quietly talking in the kitchen, laughing, making plans, discussing purchases. They sounded like a single whole, and I was like a stranger in my own home. Memories of how my husband and I once dreamed of our own apartment surfaced in my head. How I rejoiced in every corner of every little thing. And now this home belonged not to us, but to her, and suddenly I caught a new cold. Thin voice inside me. "You don't have to endure this." This thought broke through the noise of humiliation, like a ray of light in the darkness. For the first time, I clearly understood that if I didn't start fighting for myself, I would soon disappear, dissolve into someone else's will. I imagined my future. My mother-in-law, the mistress of my house, her husband, her faithful protector, and me bent and silent. And I became afraid. Afraid for myself, for my life, for the fact that I could lose not only the apartment, but also myself. I sat up in bed, looking into the darkness, and quietly whispered, "No, I won't do that." And at that moment, a spark ignited inside, still weak, but ready to flare up into a flame. I understood that a struggle awaited me ahead, and I had to find the strength in myself not to give up everything that was dear to me. In the morning, I woke up with a firm decision. Last night had turned everything inside me upside down. I could no longer allow myself to be a shadow in my own home. I prepared breakfast, silently, trying to hide my excitement. But inside me, determination was seething. My mother-in-law was sitting at the table, clicking away on her phone. My husband was still asleep. I looked at her, and for the first time I didn't feel any fear, only irritation and a desire to get my place back. When my husband woke up, the atmosphere in the kitchen immediately became tense. He sat down next to my mother, smiled at her, and took a sandwich straight from the plate I had placed in front of me. Everything was as usual, but I knew today would be different. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Although my hands were shaking, my husband looked up from his food, raising an eyebrow in displeasure. My mother-in-law snorted, as if she had known in advance that she would not like the conversation. "I am no longer going to tolerate what is happening in this house," I said, and for the first time looked my mother-in-law straight in the eyes. "This is my apartment, bought with my money and registered in my name, and I will not allow it to be turned into a branch of your will." My husband abruptly put the mug on the table, and the tea spilled over the edge. "Are you starting again?" he roared. "How much longer? Mom lives here and that's it. Whether you like it or not, accept it." "No," I said firmly. "I won't accept it." The silence hung heavy and thick. The mother-in-law narrowed her eyes and pressed her lips together. The husband jumped up. The chair crashed to the ground. "You've gone completely nuts." He pointed his finger at my face. "Who are you to make rules?" "The owner of this apartment," I replied in an icy tone. "And if it comes down to it, I'm the one who decides who will live here, and for how long." I was surprised at my own words. I had never spoken so harshly before. My husband froze as if he had been hit. My mother-in-law jumped up and screamed, "Oh, is that so? You're throwing us out. After everything we've done for you." I couldn't stand it and burst out laughing. It was a nervous laugh, but there was a release in it. "What have you done for me? Take away my peace. Turn my home into a battlefield. Humiliate me every day. Thank you." But no. My husband tried to grab my hand, but I pulled it away. "Listen, I'm tired of your hysterics," he began in a different tone, as if trying to persuade me. "Let's live peacefully. Mom doesn't interfere. On the contrary, she helps. You're just making a mountain out of a molehill. She helps." I turned to him. "Since when is it possible to turn off my computer, redo the furniture, and give orders behind my back? This is help. No. Dear, this is an intrusion. I will not tolerate it any longer." My mother-in-law rolled her eyes, but there was a flicker of alarm in them. Apparently, my new tone had alarmed her. My husband, on the contrary, flushed with anger. "So that's it," he said, clenching his fists. "Mom is staying, and if you don't like it, the door is over there." I took a deep breath. It was the moment of truth. Everything inside me sank. But I said what I had long been afraid to say. "Okay. Then you go away." My husband froze. My mother-in-law gasped. I continued. "You made your choice. You chose to live by your mother's rules. And not with me. Then pack your things and go to her." He started talking incoherently, sometimes making excuses, sometimes threatening. But I wasn't listening anymore. For the first time, I felt like I was in control of the situation. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't make excuses. I just stood my ground. In the evening, he packed his bag. My mother-in-law ran after him, trying to persuade him to stay. But he apparently realized that I wouldn't back down. As we parted, he said, "You'll regret it." I closed the door and took a deep breath for the first time in months. Silence fell over the apartment. Yes. Hard times lay ahead of me. Yes. I could lose my husband. But I did not lose the most important thing, myself. I went to the window and looked at the city. The night was surprisingly clear. A feeling of freedom spread through my chest. I knew that tomorrow a new life would begin. Not the one that was imposed on me, but the one that I chose myself. And it was stronger than any fear. I stood by the window and looked at the city lights, feeling a strange calm. For the first time in a long time, I breathed freely. There were no more constant screams, nagging and pressure. Yes, my husband was gone. And perhaps there were difficulties ahead. But along with him, his mother's rules were gone too. I understood that I had chosen myself and my life. Now in my house there will be only my will, my order and my silence. And I knew for sure, there will be no way back. Now I woke up without fear and fell asleep without tears. The silence in the house became real happiness for me. I knew that it was not easy ahead, but I was ready to move on. I chose freedom and my future. And this decision became the most correct in my life.